Welcome everybody to another episode of Straight Talk. I'm your host, Bob Anderson. Well, tonight we're going to be talking politics again, and I'm excited to have a great guest with us tonight, the outgoing chairperson of the Republican Party of Minnesota, Keith Downey. Keith, welcome to the show tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me,
Well,
Bob.
I appreciate you willing to come on. Now your term is ending, correct?
Yeah, 5 more days. May 1st, a new chair will be installed.
Okay, and that's happening in St. Cloud this Saturday?
Yep, the election is on Saturday, and then the new term and the new budget cycle and all of that starts on May 1st.
Oh, wow. So how many terms have you been in?
2. So they're 2-year terms, and I was elected in 2013 and 15, and now stepping aside for somebody else.
Oh, yeah. So has it been a good experience, or?
I think when you look back to where Republicans were 5 years ago, the electoral defeat that we had coming off of 2012, the fact that the party was significantly in debt on the front page for all the wrong reasons. When I came in, I felt like we needed first to really accomplish a turnaround and then to launch a comeback. And I felt like we did that in those 4 years. Plenty of things to get better at and lots of ways for us to improve yet. But we've taken a nice step and gotten things back under control and really positioned, I think, with the voters, and that's most important, to really govern in Minnesota going forward.
Well, the political landscape has definitely changed in Minnesota. We saw this with the Trump election. I mean, I've told you before, too, I'm brand new to the Republican Party. I only came because of the Trump. And what I saw people coming out from all parts of this state. And,
Right.
up in the northern Iron Range, there were plenty of Democrats. Trump didn't come as close winning this state because of just Republicans. There were a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents. So I think it's a great opportunity for the Republican Party coming up in the governor's race and the Senate race.
Right. It was interesting when Trump first announced, and people may not really appreciate this, but the political parties show up down at the state fair, and we have our booth, and literally, a million people come through there, and you get a chance to talk to a lot of them. And it was interesting, even back in that fall, right after Donald Trump declared, you could sense an energy and an interest on the part of people who were not traditionally Republicans.
Right.
And you could tell something was going on. He did well in our straw poll, the corn poll that we had that year, and his momentum continued to build. And his entry into the Republican Party primary process was a difficult one for the party, and a lot of people, strong conservatives or other kind of coalition people in the party, looked at what Donald Trump was doing, and it was a tough process, right? And yet here we are now later, and I think our coalition is bigger and stronger, and people have really gotten used to what he's doing.
Well, it's definitely, there's different factions in the party. I'm learning, like I say, I'm new to it, and I have, it was a wild ride for me because getting to know the Republican Party also, new people and everything, because I came from the Independence Party and it was very small. You know? But I will say when Tom Warner was running for governor that year, there was a buzz at the state fair, like you're talking about, for the Independence Party, which was huge, which we never really had. So I know what you're talking about. Trump, when you were out at the hangar right before the election, when there was 20,000, I mean, people were coming from all over. That's when I was really shocked, actually. I mean, I was a supporter. I was going on the rallies other places, but in Minnesota, and those people, it was from all walks of life. It was, and I think we have to retain that. That's what I'm sticking with the party for, because I want to make sure that the Republican Party is the party for the average working class in the state, because the Democrats have moved so far away from it. They've gone so far left that it's a ripe opportunity for the Republican Party in this.
I couldn't agree more, and actually I have been saying for years that the Republican Party needed to be a little more populist, and I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, but the fact that what we stand for in terms of individual liberty and opportunity, free markets, and people just doing the good things they have always done as Americans in our system as it was originally designed, that's really good for everybody. It's great for average everyday Minnesotans who just want a job in the mines. It's good for farmers. It's good for single mothers trying to work and raise their kids. It's good for the families in the urban core whose schools are failing them. And so I've always thought that our party especially when you think about how it was founded by Abraham Lincoln to free the slaves, has really always stood for average, everyday people and their opportunity in life. And who would have thought that a billionaire real estate developer...
He's a blue-collar billionaire.
He is, and people resonated with that, right?
Well,
and the party never would have predicted that, right? And yet here he came, upended a lot of things in the party and caused a lot of folks some anxiety, and yet here we sit and we have a president and governing majorities in Washington, D.C. We have a majority in the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate, and we have a real chance now to govern and to deliver on those promises for the voters. And I think you just saw a poll today that 96% of the people who voted for Trump are still very glad they did, and only 2% wish they hadn't.
He would have won the popular too, because Hillary's support has even gotten less.
Very possible. I look at it from the Republican side, and I remember after Donald Trump's inauguration speech, and then again after his first State of the Union, and I thought, you know, that's a speech. Those are a set of ideas. Those are things that Donald Trump stands for as a candidate and now as our president, that just opens up a huge swath of voters for us to go and talk to as Republicans and still stay true to who we are as conservatives and fiscal conservatives and social conservatives, and build this coalition and be so much stronger because of what Donald Trump has brought to the party, in spite of the fact that a lot of people, myself included, as he first came on the scene, questioned what in the world was going on. You couldn't deny the people that were supporting him and what they were saying. And so in the end, here we sit and we're much stronger and a bigger coalition as a result.
Well, that's just like me. Like I said, I caucused for Donald Trump, and it was all Marco Rubio. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me, because I didn't know the party.
Sure.
So I was really surprised, but I stuck with it and everything. And the party has got, I mean, there's a lot of great people, like-minded people that I've met through the party now. And I don't have my delegate status because when I moved down, I lost it, but I've stayed in. There's a lot of Trump supporters like myself that have come in new to the party. And I think what all of us, average working class, you know, we're going about our jobs, we're going about our families.
Right.
We want to know, we don't want to have to be worrying about what's going on down at the Capitol. And here in the state of Minnesota, we got that Republican majority in there. And my biggest issue is the health care.
Yeah.
Because I really think Minnesota should have an asset in a health care in our state, because that's killing all of us for these health care premiums.
Right.
Well, I was very disappointed with that reinsurance bill that the Republicans passed. And that I've been an outspoken critic about, but Joshua Wickender and I went through this whole thing last month on this show, so I'm not going to drag you into that debate, but that's the one thing that I think all of us want to feel confident that if we are putting Republicans in there, they're going to work for our best efforts. Because the Democratic Party has moved so far, they've forgotten about the average working class. They're going about classes of people, and they're separating out all these different groups. Well, that left a big block of people that weren't accounted for.
Right.
And you saw that come out in this last election. And I think for the party moving forward, to keep that energy and keep these people and, you know, come through on our promises.
Well, I agree, and opportunity for Republicans is that now we do get to govern,
Yes.
and it is on us to do it the
Yes.
right way. And Donald Trump is new in Washington. There's a lot of scar tissue to cut through out there.
He's getting some learning
well,
lessons too.
and you know, passing legislation is not easy, especially when it's big stuff. And so I think, you know, a year from now we'll look back and I think see a lot of progress. Nothing's ever easy. It's a long, hard-fought process, even when you're in control.
Yeah.
But I'm confident that we can get the job done for the people. And I couldn't agree more. I say this all the time as people ask me, what about your chances in 2018? And I say it almost all depends on what we do in Washington, D.C. and what we do in St. Paul, and remembering the voice of the people that spoke so loudly last November. If we do that, I agree we got a great chance, and not the least of which is the fact that the Democrats, as you said, just continue to lurch leftward. It's almost as though they didn't really hear the voters at all last fall.
They're blaming the Russians, they're blaming everything but their own failures. And it was very obvious that they not only had a poor candidate, but they weren't showing they're fighting for us, you know, with the forgotten ones. So I think, you know, when I came into the party, I thought, after this Trump thing, I thought the governor's race would be a great opportunity for Republicans. Now I'm looking at the Senate seat. Amy Klobuchar, I used to be a fan of. She has gone so far to the left, and then with this, both her and Senator Frackin made such fools of themselves on the Supreme Court justice nomination process. I thought, are you kidding me? Not only were we embarrassed for our state by our 2 senators that we've got to put somebody in there. We've already got a far left with Al Franken. It's time to have some balance. And I think if we get the right candidate and get the right messaging, we have a great shot at that Senate seat also, not just the governorship.
Well, in 2018 in Minnesota, we will have the Minnesota House up. The Senate's on a 4-year term, so they're not until 2020. But we'll have the Minnesota House back up and all 4 of our constitutional offices and the U.S. Senate. And so I agree. I think we have a great opportunity. The party overall, when you think about its job in supporting its candidates and trying to deliver a positive, conservative message to everybody and let them know that they're going to do much better and their opportunity in life is going to grow with us there, we have a chance to expand on our not only our governing majorities, but actually I think to almost, I don't want to say lock down, but really take the next step in terms of cementing for people that, you know what, we are the party, we are your party. So we got a great chance, I think, to position ourselves for long-term sustainable majorities. Again, I'll go back to the fact that what we do in Washington, D.C. and what we do in St. Paul over the next 12 to 18 months will tell the tape on how we do in 2018.
It's almost more work when you do control these things, because then you really have to step up and do it. There were, you know, look how many times they introduced to repeal the Obamacare, but they knew it wasn't going to have a chance with it. Well, now it could happen. So they've been having, you know, setbacks with the insurance. But well, as far as the candidates that are running to take over your spot, I've met 3 of them. I met Chris Fields, I've met Jennifer, and I've met Rick Rice. I haven't met, is it Senator Hahn?
Yeah, former Senator Hahn.
Hahn, okay,
David Hahn.
He's the only one I haven't met. I met the other 3 at Trump functions, so I know they were Trump people, but I had never met Hahn. So I don't know who's the lead for that, but I'm excited. I'm going to be up there to see who takes it over. Do you feel confident the party's in a good position now, that whoever gets in there now is going to have a setup pretty good?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, we really had a fundamental turnaround, not just from an operational and a financial standpoint, but from a political standpoint as well. And so I feel like our operational issues are largely solved, and we are a lot stronger in terms of our ability to put a ground game behind our candidates. The financial side of it, we're a little over halfway there. We still have some debt. We had $2.2 million originally, and it's down to around $900,000 now. And so it doesn't hurt us really from a cash standpoint. We have the ability to raise the funds and spend them on campaigns and still make our obligations on that. And then now obviously we have a strong majority in the House and a majority in the Senate, and so we can build from there. And I have told people when I thought about possibly running for a 3rd term as chair, it occurred to me, and I became convinced of it, that we would be stronger as an organization, as an institution, if now that we have made this advance, that we could undergo a successful leadership transition and prove that all of the systems and the processes and the things that we have built are sustainable, that they're part of our organization. They're not simply a particular person. So I'm looking
forward. Plug a new person in and it should be able to be operational.
Correct. They need to have the commitments to continuing to build and the ability to raise the funds and recruit the candidates and do all those things. So there's no foregone conclusions. I remember former state party chair advising me before I ran. He said, well, you can do all kinds of stuff, and then the minute you walk out the door, it can all be unwound too. So, I hope that the delegates will pick the right person, somebody who has the vision and the skills and ability to take it to the next level. And if they do, and again, if we do right by the voters in Washington and St. Paul, then we could be teed up for a good year in 2018 and be given an even greater chance to help the state of Minnesota.
Have you been getting much buzz as far as candidates coming to you, or has there been, I haven't heard too many for the governor's or Senate race, really? Yeah,
it's interesting. 4 years ago when I got in at this exact same time, leading up to our statewide races back then, there weren't a lot of candidates.
Okay.
And frankly, a large number of them, maybe 5, had declared their candidacy and said that either they weren't that interested in the party endorsement or they were committed to running the primary regardless of whether they got endorsed. And so now we have a large number of candidates that are considering it. And I think that this year the party endorsement is going to mean a lot. I think it'll be really hard after we have supported our endorsed candidates and gotten them across the finish line consistently for the last 4 years, including 4 years ago when we were in a fairly weakened state. Our endorsed candidates all ended up on the ballot. I really think it'll be difficult for a candidate to declare this summer and say, I'm running for governor or U.S. Senate or Secretary of State or Attorney General or whatever it is, and say, but my strategy is to go to the primary and avoid the party endorsement. I think the path to success, the path to victory this time around is through the party endorsement. The party's a lot stronger. We are on this upward trajectory, and so I'm confident that we put all of that together, have a good, strong party, run great caucuses and conventions, have good candidates competing for the endorsement, that people will see that the endorsement really is the ticket to victory in November.
Does the state chair have much dialogue with the national Republican
Oh,
Party?
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Have you getting much feedback of what's happening out there? You know, if you read the media, I mean, this is the most chaos you've ever seen in in an administration. But I've been happy. You know, I'm one of those 96, 98% that's still plenty happy I voted for him.
You know, it's amazing, I think, how discredited the mainstream media has become. They are just constantly, hour by hour, literally looking for anything that they can possibly put out there as a headline that will somehow undermine the Trump administration. And I think they've really lost a lot of credibility. And,
he exposes it. I mean, he's got more Twitter followers than the New York Times has subscribers. So I mean,
well,
it's just like,
you know what, after 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 stories that don't actually end up
Exactly.
being true, I mean, people watch and they see this stuff, and they voted for Donald Trump, at least in part, because of some of that too. So don't believe what the media says. They've got an agenda, and it's all to undermine Donald Trump and position Democrats
That's why
in 2018.
that's why I like to have straight talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any ambitions of going national or working? There's a woman that was elected for the national after Reince Priebus left, right?
Right, yeah, I was going to move on to that after talking a little bit about the press and their intentions to try and undermine everything. What people don't realize is that the Republican National Committee has been on probably an 8-year growth trajectory, much like we here in Minnesota have, and it's been very intentional. They have developed the battleground states. You go back and look at North Carolina and Alabama and Florida and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan and Indiana and Wisconsin, all of these states, right? They've all been on the same program to build out a solid ground game through the state party to engage all of these outside groups that participate in politics now effectively.
Right.
You got to do it legally, of course,
Exactly.
but the team is so much bigger these days. And Minnesota, we have been building in conjunction with the RNC that exact same capability. So when I mention that we've reached a spot where now we can take it to the next level, a lot of that is because the resources at the RNC, the data and the lists and the field technology and the strategies and all of those things are in place, and we've been building them here in Minnesota. And if you look back at some of those states, Wisconsin and Indiana, other states that were on this exact same trajectory 8-10 years ago, we're right there now. So we're positioned for success, and the support of the party is a big part of that.
Well, we didn't have the results of the election until the next day. When has Minnesota ever not been called like 5 minutes after people start voting? So you know, I mean, we came very close turning the state red. And Wisconsin, even they have to have a great ground game in place because Scott Walker on those recalls, and he continually won. You know, and then he won again, and he really governed tough. You know, I mean, he had a lot of enemies.
Well, that's a key point. You, I think, gain a ton of respect from the voters, even if they don't agree with you, if you say what you mean and you do what you say, and then you just let the results stand where they are. And obviously Wisconsin's doing fantastic right now, so I think his model is proving itself. And again, we got that exact same chance right here in Minnesota, Bob.
That's
we really
encouraging. It's really good to know because, you know, it's like you know, and I think really was unfortunate that there were so many never Trumpers in Minnesota because they say, well, I'm not worried because Minnesota's not going to be in play anyway. Well, no, it was.
Yeah,
you know, we had Democrats that came over for us, but it was the never Trumpers were bugging me.
Well, it's interesting. The political parties are a really big coalition, and there's a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions, and we've never We've never put a lid on debate in the
No.
Republican Party, right?
this
The
is true.
Democrats, boy, they,
Yeah.
you know, hey, you're going to support Hillary or else, right?
Well, how about their new chairperson?
Yeah, right. Kicking everybody who's
Yeah.
pro-life out of the party. And all
Yeah,
this crazy
oh my God, that
moving
guy,
further left.
he's a gem.
Well, so our party has always been pretty dynamic,
Yep.
a lively debate, and we're never going to squash that. I think we've gotten a lot better at not being factional and fighting ourselves, but realizing that we are a coalition and trying to go out and accomplish good things for our state and our country. And so we've got, I think, a contrast there between what our party is doing, building and growing its coalition. And you look back at where we were, let's say a year ago, right after Trump had beaten Ted Cruz in Indiana and secured the nomination. And I said to people, we need to take time. People were very passionate about who they believed in. Let's take time. And I credit, I've said this 100 times, I credit the Trump supporters for just being positive about their candidate and never, putting the thumb down on the Cruz or the Rubio supporters. And we started coming together.
It came. I think after that national convention, it did. I think it was after that it started to.
And then there was the classic hockey stick, because it was literally the week or two before the election that Republicans started really coming home and saying, you know what, we're going to support Trump. If it's the Supreme Court nominee, if it's the tax policy, whatever it is, we're looking at Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, the consummate insider, career corrupt politician that nobody trusts versus an outsider, and say what you want about any of their personal dynamics. That was the fundamental contrast. It was in favor of Republicans. Republicans came home, and what I have been preaching as much as I can is that we have to invite those Trump people.
Oh, I know. You've been very good about that, and I appreciate it. That's how I contacted you, because I was at one of those other state delegate meetings.
Well, they may not even be interested in the party, and frankly, some of them may not like political parties, but we need them to be part of the team, whether they're still out in their own groups or whether they're actually starting to integrate in and maybe work on campaigns or run candidates or become involved in the party. Wherever they want to do it and in whatever space, we need to invite them in and say, you're part of the coalition, and this is how we really grow as a party.
You just giving me a 5-minute mark. Is there anything you want to put in here, or anything you want to touch on that you haven't? Any plans for you in the future now, or mum's the word on that? Or?
Yeah, well, so the delegates hired me to do a job as party chair. I have stayed as true to that as I can be. I haven't been thinking really about anything past May 1st. And come May 1st, I'll take a little breath, spend some time with my family, and figure out what's next and take it from there. But for now, there's been a lot of work to put together to try and get ready for 2018. These elections are literally 365-day a year.
I bet you never dreamt you were going to be in the turbulence that happened through Donald Trump. That was a wild event.
Well, it was, and I remember thinking again a year and a half ago when he first declared, and seeing the momentum and the energy that something was happening. And the party has always had to absorb, or I shouldn't say absorb, but to figure out how to build into the coalition movement groups or candidate groups, and go all the way back to the social conservatives in the 80s and 90s, and then the Ron Paul libertarian folks, and then the Tea Party folks, and now a big group of Trump supporters. That's how the party grows, and you got to find a way to do it as a team and not abandon your core principles, but realize, the bigger you get and the more appeal you have to mainstream America and mainstream Minnesota, the greater success you can have. So anyway, we'll figure out how I participate in helping do that in another month. But
thank you for your service, Keith.
All right, thank you,
and
Bob.
Good luck to whatever you plan on in the future, and I'll be around that party too. So.
Well, thanks, Bob. Great to have a chance to visit.
Thanks a lot for tuning in tonight, and remember, you can email me at bobtalk22@yahoo.com. Thanks a lot. Good night.